Ishvaranam vacha satyam tatheva charatam kvachit tesham yat svavacho yuktam buddhimam samacharet. Translation. One should simply follow the instructions of the Lord and his empowered servants. Their instructions are all good for us, and any intelligent person will perform them as instructed. However, one should guard against trying to imitate their actions. One should not try to drink the ocean of poison in imitation of Lord Shiva. Unquote. We should always consider the position of the Ishvaras, or those who can actually control the movements of the sun and moon, as superior. Without such power, one cannot imitate the Ishvaras, who are super powerful. Lord Shiva drank poison to the extent of swallowing an ocean. But if any common man tries to drink even a fragment of such poison, he will be killed. There are many pseudo-devotees of Lord Shiva who want to indulge in smoking ganja, marijuana, and similar intoxicating drugs, forgetting that by so imitating the acts of Lord Shiva, they are calling death very near. Similarly, there are some pseudo-devotees of Lord Krishna who prefer to imitate the Lord in his Rasa Leela, or dance of love, forgetting their inability to lift Govardhan hill. It is best, therefore, that one not try to imitate the powerful, but simply follow their instructions. Nor should one try to occupy their posts without qualification. There are many incarnations of God without the power of the Supreme Godhead. So before we start speaking or discussing a verse, we like to invoke prayers, invoke the blessings of the acharyas, blessings of the gurus, of the spiritual leaders who gave us this wisdom from time immemorial. So if you know the prayers, please do sing them along with me. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamascha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadhavaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamascha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radhakanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhyubhe Evacha Patitanam Pavnebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutare Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityanamine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Shpapad Ki Jai Mukum Kuriti Vacham Pangum Nagati Thank you everybody for joining. Thank you to all those who have come to take darshan of the deities. It's a very fortunate thing that we're able to take darshan of the deities, and it's even more fortunate when we sit down and listen to the words of Krishna, the words that Krishna has spoken in the Bhagavad Gita, the words that Krishna has given to us in the form of his activities like the Srimad Bhagavatam, and in the form of Krishna's words that he has given in the activities of his devotee pastimes like the Chaitanya Charitamrita. How many of you know the deities that are sitting right in the middle between Sitaram, Lakshmana, Hanuman and Radha Gokulananda? How many of you know who the deities are? The small two deities just right in the middle. Okay, a few? What about the rest? Ever thought of what their names are? Krishna Balaram? Or who else? What's their specific form called? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Gauranitai. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu. So these are the forms of the Lord as when he came 500 years ago in the form of a devotee. to showcase to us what it means to be a devotee. All of us in this room, we come to take darshan of the deities because we're bhaktas, we're devotees of the Lord. We believe that Krishna is there. We have faith in the Lord as being there. But just to enhance that faith, just to show us how to live life with that faith, Gaur Nitai came. Why am I mentioning this? Actually, it's not in my notes. I didn't mention this in my notes. But it's nice to know who the Gaur Nitai deities are. I was sitting in Kirtan earlier today, and I just briefly saw a mother and a daughter, where the daughter was going like, oh, who are they in the middle? Just pointing at the deities in the middle. So I thought it would be nice to recognize them. But there's a deeper meaning, actually. Because the verse today, if I just read it out, translation, if I did not perform prescribed duties, all these worlds would be put to ruination. I would be the cause of creating unwanted population, and I would thereby destroy the peace of all living beings. Krishna is telling us here that he's performing his prescribed duties because he doesn't want the world to be in ruination. In the same way, Gaur Nitai came to show us how to live our life as a devotee. So how many of us have read the Bhagavad Gita? Okay. The same hands, putting the hand up. Couple less, I guess. Couple less. So let's at least start with the basics. Where does the Bhagavad Gita take place? Kurukshetra. What is Kurukshetra? As in, is it a temple? Is it a battlefield? A battlefield. So the Bhagavad Gita, the book that Prabhu now has in his hand, was spoken on a battlefield. Strange, no? Where there's a conversation taking place. I mean, a book means a conversation. A conversation is taking place on a battlefield. The war starts with the Pandavas and the Kauravas. They're cousins, right? Pandavas are one set of cousins and the Kauravas are another set. And here we have a conversation taking place just moments before the war starts. It's described it took between 45 and 48 minutes to speak this conversation, right? And if we try to recite the whole Bhagavad Gita today, it will take us about 2 hours. So we can understand something very different is taking place here. And specifically in chapter 1, there's 18 chapters. In chapter 1 specifically, we see that this kind, compassionate, pious Arjuna from the Pandava side is going to Krishna, who's his charioteer, the one who's riding the chariot. He's going, I want to see who's on the opposite side of the army. Please take the chariot in the middle of the army so I can just see who the enemies are. So Krishna follows. He follows the direction he's been given. And he goes, okay, we're in the middle now what? So Arjuna's looking at the armies on the opposite side and he sees, what does he see? He sees his family members. He sees his friends. He sees his well-wishers on the opposite side of the army. And now he's thinking, but they're my own people. I can't kill them. Why am I fighting this war? They're my own people. So as he's contemplating, as he's thinking about this, he's coming up with 4 reasons for why he shouldn't fight. And he tells Krishna these, I shouldn't fight. Why? Number 1, out of compassion. He's seeing that these are all my people, and what's going to happen on the battlefield? Well, naturally, people are going to die. They're going to leave their body. They'll lose their body. So out of compassion for the body, he says, I don't want to fight. Second, he says that even if I fight, even if I win, what am I going to get? When we have victory in the world, think about exams. Your child's come home with an exam, and he's top marks, right? They want to share it. They want to celebrate with the people that they're close to. But here, if Pandavas win or the Kauravas win, if Arjun wins, The people he wants to celebrate with are no longer there. So why would he? Why would he want to fight? Third reason, killing accrues sin. Right? It's a sinful act to kill, which is why we don't, ahimsa is the thing, right? Which is why we don't kill. So he's like, if I fight, that means fighting means I have to kill. If I kill, then that means I get sin. So I don't want sin. But the fourth thing he mentions is talking about the harmful effects on a dynasty being destroyed, the harmful effects of destroying a family. He goes through, in a couple of verses, he goes through a progression on what it means for harm to come to the family. When a dynasty is destroyed, then family traditions stop, because there's no more lineage to kind of let it pass down. When family traditions stop, then irreligion rises. People no longer follow the religious codes. When irreligion rises, then what happens? Women become polluted. And when women become polluted, unwanted progeny takes place. So like this, he gave four solid reasons for why he shouldn't fight. And in chapter 2, when Krishna starts speaking, he actually blasts through 3 of those reasons very quickly. So the first reason was what? Compassion. Compassion for the body. So what does Krishna say in return? You're not this body, you're a spirit soul. Even if you leave the body, you still live on. So the real compassion is for the soul, not for the body. The second thing, what's the second thing he said? Second argument. Okay, let's go with that one. Accruing sin, if I can speak. Krishna says, okay, you're thinking about the sin of killing, but what about the sin of not performing your duty? He was a Kshatriya, Arjuna was a Kshatriya, it was his duty to fight. What about that sin? Third reason? Yes, that he won't enjoy the victory. So Krishna goes, actually, happiness, distress, enjoyment, sadness, we have to transcend these things. We have to think beyond those. One flickering moment of happiness and the next 5 hours of distress. Everything, no? I saw you smile. I think you have experience of this. All of us do, actually. We want that car, and to get that car, that brand new car, £50,000, we go to work for a whole year for a car, one car. How much distress do we put ourselves in just for a car? We spend our whole life just to pay off the mortgage on a house that we leave in the end anyway. For a small amount of happiness, we actually put our life through so much. Isn't it? Your parents put you through school. How distressful is that? So Krishna goes through three of the items in chapter 1. And in chapter 3, we start speaking about Karma Yoga. Krishna starts talking about Karma Yoga. And specifically in this verse, he addresses the 4th point from Krishna. What was the 4th point? Traditions get destroyed. Right? So in chapter 1, I'll just recite the verse that Arjuna was actually talking about here. It's chapter 1, verse 40. Adharma bipavat Krishna pradushyanti kulastriya strishu dushta suvarshneya jayate varnasankaraha. Translation. When irreligion is prominent in the family, O Krishna, the women of the family become polluted, and from the degradation of womanhood, a descendant of Vrishni comes unwanted progeny. Unquote. So this is chapter 1, verse 40. So Arjuna's arguing here that if he were to fight the war, and say the Pandavas won the war, the side that Arjuna is on is won the war, what's going to happen? Well, all the Kauravas are going to die. Those in the army are going to die. So if all the men who are fighting in the war are going to die, then what's going to happen to all the family members at home? The women, the children, the elderly, what's going to happen to them? Seeing this, all the miscreants of society, all the people who just have this mentality that, okay, you know, I just want to exploit, I just want to abuse whatever I can. They're going to feel, yes, you know, I can, you know, the husbands aren't at home, the fathers aren't at home, the protectors aren't at home. I can just bash down the door, enter, and do whatever I want. So then the women get polluted. And when the women get polluted, naturally what happens? Unwanted children. It's not that it was a child between a husband and wife. It was somebody who came and just decided to abuse the situation. So that was Arjun's argument. Pretty sound, no? Like, this is why he shouldn't fight. But Krishna actually gives a deeper reason as to why he should fight. And he explains it through this verse. Very subtly, he explains it through this verse. He goes that actually the reason for this unwanted progeny, the reason for all this unwanted children, is not because you're going to fight. It's actually because you wouldn't be doing your duty. Everybody has a duty to perform. And Krishna is saying that even I have to perform a duty, otherwise unwanted progeny will take place. And what was Krishna's duty in that moment? Krishna was a Kshatriya. Kshatriya means a warrior. We can break down the word Kshatriya. Kshatriya comes from two root words, Shat and Trayate. Does anybody know Sanskrit? What do you think Shat means? Truth? Fight for the truth, okay. War? Okay, good try, good try. She was actually closer, actually. Shat means injury. Injury. And Trayate means to save one from. So Kshatriya, when you put them together, means to save others from injury, or to save other living entities. So a Kshatriya, which is why we translate Kshatriya as warrior, because a warrior's duty is to protect, right? So a Kshatriya's duty is to protect the citizens. And the citizens aren't just the people of society, they're also the animals, the trees, the birds, all the living entities of society. So if Arjun didn't perform his Kshatriya duty, then by default, the Kauravas would have won. But the Kauravas were also Kshatriyas. But the difference was that the Kauravas were corrupt Kshatriyas. Right? Those of us who know the Mahabharata war, maybe we've seen it on TV, we understand that the Kauravas were corrupt. And what does that mean for society? Like, well, how does a corrupt leader of society introduce unwanted progeny? Well, naturally, we can see that if the leaders are corrupt, then all the corrupt people of society feel like we have a free pass to do some, dirty business. The leaders are corrupt, so why do the citizens care to be pious? Why do the citizens care to follow any form of duty? So Krishna is explaining to Arjuna here that actually, if you fight because you're a pious Kshatriya, because you stand for principles, you actually have an opportunity to make sure you save the world. Shri Shri Radha Gokulananda, Shri Shri Sitaram Lakshmana Hanuman, Shri Shri Gaurnitai Ki Jai. And so if Arjuna fights, then what's going to happen to all the miscreants? They're going to feel like, oh, our king, our rulers are very pious. They'll actually punish us if we do something wrong. But if the kings themselves are corrupt, then They might punish, they might not. And even if they punish, then what are they going to do? Because they themselves are corrupt. They themselves are doing all the bad things. So they're not going to care so much. So Krishna here is saying that I have to perform my duties for society to work properly. So subtly he's giving Arjuna the hint that even you have to perform your duty properly. Otherwise you will be the cause of unwanted progeny, of ruining the peace and prosperity in the world. But hang on a minute. We just glorify the deities because the curtain's shut. And we call the deities the supreme God. We call them God, Bhagwan. And yet, he has to perform duties? Can you explain how God has to perform duties? A wild guess. No? So God just said in verse 24 of chapter 3 of the Bhagavad Gita, if I, Krishna, did not perform prescribed duties, all these worlds would be put to ruination. I would be the cause of creating unwanted population and would thereby destroy the peace of all living beings. How does God have to perform duties? I mean, he can just click his finger and he'll be like, everything's fine. He doesn't even have to click. He can just be like, okay, everybody's peaceful. Peace would happen, no? So Krishna comes into the world for different reasons, right? And one of the reasons that he comes is to lead by example. There's a very famous verse, I'm sure most of us in this room would know it. So if you know it, then please do say it with me. Yada yada hi dharmasya bharata abhyuthanam dharmasya tadatman shijamyaham. I can see there's a lot of people in this room who have watched the Mahabharata series. What does that verse mean? So we know the verse, but what does it mean? Sorry. Yeah. So whenever and wherever there is a decline in religious principles, or an increase in irreligious principles, I myself will appear. Krishna is saying this, that whenever there is a decline in religious principles or a rise in irreligious principles, Krishna appears. So that's one of the reasons why he appears. To establish the rules and regulations, to establish the codes and conduct of dharma, of religion, of duty. But he's Bhagwan. In the Brahma Samhita, Brahma calls him Ishvara Parama Krishna. He calls Krishna Ishvara Parama, which means the topmost Godhead. We translate it as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the Bhagavad Puran, it said, Krishnastu Bhagwan Swayam. Krishnastu Bhagwan Swayam. Krishna, you are the source of the incarnations. You are the Supreme God. Like this, different scriptures call out Krishna as the Supreme God. And here he is coming to re-establish the principles of religion. Such a kind, compassionate person he is. And how does he establish the rules of religion? Well, those of us in the corporate world, we understand that there's something called leadership. And what do we want the leaders to do? One of the things is to lead by example, right? And Krishna understood this, that a leader, somebody, if he's coming to establish the rules of religion, he has to lead by example. He himself has to showcase what it means to be religious, what it means to practice the codes of religion, what it means to practice the codes of dharma. So this is Krishna himself coming to showcase to us what it means to follow religious principles. He wants to establish them. In order to establish them, he recognizes that he has to practice them. He has to give them. So, when we look at the leaders of today, the Rishi Sunak of today, or the Boris Johnson of the not so recent today, we look at them and we see that the same nature is there, that we want them to lead by example also. If Rishi Sunak today came out with a brand new law, you know, he got on the stage and went, okay, I'm bringing out a new law, and the next moment he himself didn't follow the law, what would happen? Everyone would break the law. We'd call him out, like, you create the law and you yourself aren't following the law. Paparazzi, media, everybody would be right there. I mean, we can see the Boris Johnson example, right? From the COVID-19 regulations. Gatherings. He himself was having a party. But there were so many people in the party, why were we focused on Boris Johnson? Why was the media only ever focused on Boris Johnson? Every headline was related to Boris Johnson. He's the leader. There were so many people in the party. Even Rishi Sunak was in the party, but at the time he wasn't prime minister, which is why nobody really cared. But Boris Johnson was the leader, which is why focus was on him. And here in the Bhagavad Gita, we're talking about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna himself. If Krishna doesn't follow his own religious practices, his own codes of religion, then what hope do we have? We will be like, Krishna does this. He doesn't follow it. Why do we follow it? Common phrase in modern society, right? A great leader does not tell you what to do. A great leader shows you how to do it. Because they show you the character, the actual practice. And they lead by that example. So Krishna came to re-establish the codes of religion. And in order to do that, he wanted to set an example. He had to set an example. That's the only reason why he actually has to follow religious principles. Because he's the Supreme Lord. He's controller of everything. In the Isha Upanishad, it's described, Ishavasyamidam sarvam yat kincha jagatyam jagat. Whatever moving, whatever is not moving. Whatever we see, whatever we don't see. It's all controlled and owned by Krishna, by the Supreme Lord. So when we look at our lives as devotees, as followers of bhaktas, as those who have come to the temple, even if it's just because we want to have deity darshan, maybe we're not so interested in the talk, but we're like, okay, we're early now, 15 minutes early for the arti, so let me just listen to what this speaker has to say. But we can see, we can think, okay, Krishna, we have some faith in Krishna. What does Krishna want from us? He himself came to establish the codes of religion. Are we following those codes of religion that he set out? Many of us will say we do. Some of us will understand that we don't. But how do we get that understanding on whether we're actually following what Krishna wants from us? Well, if you have a spouse, if you have a parent, how do you know what they want? You ask them. Nowadays, we all have this special device called a phone. We don't go to our spouse anymore. I mean, I wouldn't even be surprised if this happens whilst you're inside the same house, where you're like, one person's in one room, the other person's in another room. It's like, what do you want for dinner? Instead of just speaking, you just, what do you want for dinner? I hope that doesn't happen to anybody in the room, but I foresee that happening for us. Right? We'd be asking him, we'd go, okay, like, tell us, what do you want? You know? We can come here in front of the deities and be like, yes, I'm doing everything that you want. Now give me that bank balance, give me that Mercedes car, that Tesla car, give me that house that I just saw whilst I was coming here. I mean, it looked very beautiful. It was like probably a 5-bedroom, with gates and everything. And, I'm sure the residents have like chauffeurs and everything, We'll probably be thinking that like on the way here. On the way back, we'll be like, yes, Krishna, I'm doing everything for you. Whilst the eye is over there. The mind is over there. But Krishna gives us his literatures that set the example for us on how he wants us to live. The Bhagavad Gita, which are the words of Krishna. The Srimad Bhagavatam, which are the activities of Krishna. And the Chaitanya Charitamrita, which is the heart of Krishna. So Krishna has given us many of these books. But how many of us can read and understand these books? I'm sitting here speaking not because I understand the scriptures, but because by the mercy of the person at the back of the room, Srila Prabhupada, we've had the opportunity, we've had the mercy and the favor where those who are connected with Krishna, it's called a parampara. Those who are connected to Krishna have given us this wisdom in literature formats with their commentaries, with their understanding, with their presentation and their experience with Krishna. So that's one thing. We have, like I was mentioning, we read the translation, but we also read the purports. Because the purports give us the deeper meaning behind what Krishna is saying in the translation. If you imagine there's 3 people. There's you, there's your friend, and there's a total stranger. Imagine 3 people, you, your friend, and a total stranger. And let's say you wrote a book. If you gave that book to your friend and to the stranger, they read the same words, the exact same words, right? Because the book's exactly the same. But who do you feel is going to understand the words of the book better? The stranger or the friend? Who's going to understand the words of the book better? If you wrote the book, who's going to understand the words of the book better? Your friend or a stranger? Friend. Why? Because they know you. So we can read the Bhagavad Gita, we can read these scriptures and be like, Krishna's talking about karma yoga, Krishna's saying we should just do our duty, go to work, come home, serve our family, and that's it, that's our duty done. But is that what Krishna is actually saying? How closely connected to Krishna are we? That we actually can say that, yes, we've understood Krishna's heart. If we want to understand Krishna's heart, we have to go to somebody who is connected to Krishna's heart, who has really spent their life dedicated to Krishna. That's where the sadhus come in. That's where Guru comes in. The sadhus are often in saffron, right? They're often renounced, sannyasis. If I go to a sadhu, he's going to tell me to give up my family, my small 5-year-old kid, I'm going to give him up. I can't go to a sadhu. Because there's just one thing he's going to say. He's going to say, give up family life. But is that what the sadhus actually say? In my experience, the sadhus live their life in such a way that they set an example for how we should live. But the instructions they give us is according to our time, our place, and our circumstance. It's according to our situation in life that they give us advice on how we can progress in our duties, how we can progress in understanding Krishna's heart better. That's actually the sadhu's duty. A sannyasi's duty, just how we were talking about a kshatriya's duty, a sannyasi's duty is to spread the glories of the Lord in such a way that it attracts the heart of every living entity to do something, to take an extra step. All of us have come here to the temple for the Aarti at 7 o'clock in 10 minutes. But is spiritual life just about attending the Aarti and then going home until next week? Spiritual life is meant to be integrated in everything we do. I sit here not as a brahmachari, I don't sit here as a sannyasi at all. I sit here as just one of you guys who lives outside the temple, who has financial commitments for family, for house, etc., who goes to work, and who's progressing in that part of my life also. But the question is, how much do we want to progress in spiritual life? How much do we actually just come to the temple, to Krishna, and say, you know, whenever the devotees speak to us, it's like, I'm a devotee, I come to the temple, you know, at home I have an altar, I offer Aarti every day. I'm always thinking Krishna, Krishna, Krishna in my head. But then when calamity comes, I don't know what to do. The tears start rolling. I don't know what I'm going through. What's my situation? What wrong did I do? What wrong did you do? But we see somebody like Prabhupada. He was residing in Vrindavan. I don't know how many of you know the story or the backstory of Prabhupada. But for many years, so he had a family, he has 4 kids, or had 4 kids. He was a family person, he was in the pharmaceutical industry, he had his own business. And then as he progressed in life, because he was following the rules and regulations properly, he took sannyas. And when he took sannyas, he was residing in Vrindavan. Vrindavan is the place where Krishna performed his pastimes, right? I'm sure most of us know Vrindavan. He was living there for years, peacefully. Every day he would wake up and go to all the temples that he wanted to go to. Every day he would wake up, go to the temples, come home, cook a nice meal for himself, read the literatures, and spend time with the devotees, just happy and blissful. But at the age of 69, now those of us who are around that age can probably feel the back aching. At the age of 69, he decided, I'm going to go to America. I'm going to go to the Western world. At 69, not to sightsee. Nowadays, we can get on a plane and get to New York in 8 hours. Back then, he took a Jaladuta cargo ship, which took 6 months of travel by sea. And he was 69 years old, and he had 2 heart attacks. And he was pure vegetarian, going to a country where he didn't know if he would get vegetarian food. He knew nobody there, and he took, I don't know how much, it was like a few rupees, if that, with him. Now, those of you who are a bit of have an accountancy sort of thing, you're thinking, okay, 100 rupees is 1 pound. 1 pound is, I don't know how many dollars it is. I forget which round it is, but either $1.50 or something like that. How did he survive on a couple of rupees? That would never work. That's less than a cent, probably. But he did that to set the example that this is what an acharya does. This is what somebody who actually has faith in Krishna does. They don't look at themselves. They think about, okay, what is my duty? And his duty as a sannyasi, his duty according to his spiritual master, was to come to the Western world and preach Krishna consciousness, was to spread Krishna's name and fame, glory, was to spread the words of the Bhagavad Gita. So if we go to a sadhu like Prabhupada, if we go to an acharya like Prabhupada, then is he telling us that you also should give up family life, go to Vrindavan for 10 years, and then preach? No. When we talk about following or going to sadhus or following the acharyas, it's not that we replicate what they do. It's not that we imitate what they do. It's not that we see their life and go, okay, next moment I have to live that same life. What we have to do is follow their instructions. Srila Prabhupada gave us a very simple program. Slowly but surely come to a more humane form of life. Come to a civilized human society. What does that mean? It means following 4 regulated principles at the bare minimum. And these are very difficult for today's standards, by the way. No meat eating, no intoxication, no illicit sex, and no gambling. He made hippies follow those. Hippies are those who are fully indulging in those activities. Hippies are those that you would see on the streets and be like, peace, man. And they'd be freely drinking cannabis, smoking ganja, everything. LSD, everything. You name whatever drug you want, they'd have somebody to go to get that drug. You name whichever other hippie of the opposite gender, they've probably enjoyed the night with them. Like this, all these hippies, which are like coming from that sort of place, Prabhupada managed to make them into devotees. A lot of the leaders of ISKCON today are those very hippies. Are they following, eat meat every day, have sex every day with every person that they see, drink, take drugs, gamble all the time? No. Through Prabhupada, they transformed their lives through the Bhagavad Gita. And that's what the Bhagavad Gita is. It's not a religious book. Apologies to those who are in this room because we're thinking, oh, Bhagavad Gita, Krishna, deities, Hinduism. The Bhagavad Gita is a transformational book. A Bhagavad Gita is a book that connects us to a deeper reality so that we learn how to live our life in this world. So many qualities are there in the Bhagavad Gita, but we have to be intelligent to tap into it. And that intelligence means that we realize there are all these sadhus around, there are all these acharyas around who have dedicated their life to practicing and living by the scriptures. And we should take their example and go, okay, they're living a blissful life. They're living a happy life. They don't necessarily even have the car, the 4-bedroom apartment. How are they happy even among distress? And just as an example, my spiritual master, he left his body a couple of months ago, but he had cancer. Now, those of us thinking about cancer, who know cancer, will be like, wow, such a bad thing, such a terrible thing. You must be going through so much suffering, so much pain. But he showed by example that actually life is much deeper than the body. When I was talking earlier about transcending happiness and distress, he showed by example what it means to transcend that. Up until the very last days, he will be sitting on a Vyasasan, preaching to a full audience. I'm sitting here with full health. If I was sick, I'd probably be asking somebody else to sit here. But that is the caliber of those who follow the scriptures. Now imagine when we're sick, how much pain do we go through? Do we want to go through the pain, or do one want to see these examples and think, intelligence would say, how are they going through so much pain in their body, but still transcending all of that so much? How is it that they've completely forgotten that they have an old 70-year-old body traveling on a cargo ship for 6 months? How have they transcended? What is it that they're doing? What is it that's in their life that they're transcending all of this? And that is, they themselves are great leaders because they're following what the other leaders have given them, what the other leaders have told them to do. They're following the instructions of their guru. of the sadhus. And all Krishna is saying here is, and all Prabhupada's saying in the purport is, there's our examples, there's all the great personalities, Krishna, Prabhupada, so many sadhus around, so many acharyas, both currently in their body and also those who have left their bodies. But we should go to them and take their instructions. Oftentimes when we think of Krishna, we'll think, okay, yes, Ras Leela. Krishna has 3-4 girlfriends, hundreds of girlfriends, me 3-4 girlfriends. And the society goes, Krishna kare to Ras Leela, hum kare to karakter Leela. That's the mentality people have. But Krishna also lifted the Govardhan hill with a pinky finger on his left hand for 7 days, 7 nights. Prabhu, please try and pick that book up for 7 hours with one hand. You won't be able to do it. We'll get tired. I know I'll get tired after 15 minutes. I probably won't even last 15 minutes picking a book up. But we look at Krishna and go, oh, Ras Leela, I can have many girlfriends. Or people look at Shiva and go, oh, he drank cannabis, he had marijuana, we can too. Shiva followers say this often. But actually, Shiva also drank the poison. So why not drink the poison? Anyway, I heard the conch, but so much can be said on the Bhagavad Gita. But please do, if you take one thing away, then please do take that one thing, which is that if you look at the sadhus, if you look at those spiritual leaders who are really living their life according to the scriptures, you can observe that they are living life blissfully. Inquire, try and understand what is it that they have and you don't. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Shri Prabhupada ki jai.
Good evening, everybody. Start the Gaurati now. It's all up here. Somebody wants to read it. Shiva Jayo Jayo Gora Chandere Arati Ko Sobha Janavitatavane Jagamanalobha Dakini Mitai Cha Ame Gadadhara Nikate Advaitashini Vasa Chakradhara Osijate Gorachan Ratna Simbasane Arati Kore Nam गाने आरती को रे नाम ब्रह्मा आदि देव गाने नाराहरि आदि कोरी कमर धुलाया नाराहरि आदि कोरी कमर धुलाया संजाया मुकुंदा वातु घोषधिकाया संजाया मुकुंदा वातु घोषधिकाया शंखा बाजे घंटा बाजे बाजे करताला शंखा बाजे घंटा बाजे बाजे करताला माधुरा मृदंगा बाजे परम रसाला माधुरा मृदंगा बाजे परम रसाला शंखा बाजे घंटा बाजे माधुर 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 बाजे शंखा बाजे घंटा बाजे माधुर 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 बाजे बहु कोटि चंद्रजीनी वदन उज्ज्वला गाला देसे बनमाला कोरे जलमाला गाला देसे बनमाला कोरे जलमाला शिवा सुका नारादा प्रेमे गद गादा शिवा Narada Preme Gada Gada Bhakati Vinoda Dekhe Gora Sampada Bhakati Vinoda Dekhe Gora Sampada Aurange Arati ko toba Jag Jag Mana Loba Aurange Arati ko toba Jag Jag Mana Loba Jag man lobha Nana vitata vane Jag man lobha Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Imati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschataya Dishatarine Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Jivasati Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Gauranitai, 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 Gauranitai. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nitya Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitya Gaura Hari Bol. Nitya Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitya Gaura Hari Bol. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Nitya Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Bol Hari Bol, Nitya Gaura Hari Bol. Nitya Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitya Gaura Hari Bol. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. जय प्रभुपाद
Hare Krishna everyone, thank you for coming for this evening's Gora Arti. We will also be having, if you can all take a seat for 5 minutes, we'll be having Nashingadev Arti as well. It will only take 5 minutes. Thank you, Hare Krishna.
I hope I Thank you, Prabhu. Namaste Narasimhaya. Ito Narsima Parato Narsimo Yato Yato Yamita To Narsimo Bahe Narsimo Hridaye Narsimo Tava kara kamalavara nakha adbhuta shinga dalita hiranyakashipu tanu vringam keshavadrita narari rupa jaya jagadisha Narsingadev, 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 Jaya Narsingadev. Jaya Prahlad Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj, Jaya Prahlad Maharaj. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Nitai Gaur Premanande, Hari 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 Bol. Jai Radha Govindam.
Are you going to sing, Prabhu?